Greetings, mortals. It is I, Remortis, coming at you with another build guide for Baldur's Gate 3. This time, something different. With all this talk about gender pronouns, I find it highly unfair and unjust about the severe lack of representation in the world as a whole. What about those who identify as a Boeing AH-64 Apache attack helicopter? Well, good news, everyone! You can finally be your true self. Let's get straight into it, shall we? Essentially, this isn't so much of a leveling guide as it is a guide on item interaction, particularly to manipulate the damage output of the spell Magic Missile, which is a level 1 spell that shoots 3 magical darts that deal 1d4 plus 1 force damage per missile, and they will always hit the target.
Unless the enemy uses a spell shield.
And will shoot an additional dart per upcasted spell level above 1. So shooting a 3rd level magic missile will shoot 5 missiles, for example. And with Baldur's Gate 3's awesome itemization that we can gather throughout the acts, we can create some incredible damage. I'll link the items in the description below, and you can start dealing some insane damage with minimal investment, as early as Act 1, which will increase at each act. And that's the gist of the video. Like, comment, and subscribe for more. If you'd like to stick around, I'll be going more in depth on how the build actually works, and how the items interact with each other. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next guide. Alright, are they gone? Okay, so, before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out to some folks in my Discord who helped make this build a reality. Kusumi, who brought the magic missile insanity to our attention, and Okalope, who went hard in the paint and went crazy on some of this testing. If you'd like to help create crazy builds like this, come and brainstorm with us. Discord link is in the description. Now let's go over some of the key items that makes this build so crazy in the first place. Starting off with perhaps one of the most powerful and often overlooked swords in the entire game, available in Act 1. And no, I'm not talking about that stupid Everburn blade. The Excalibur of the Drow. Phalar Aluve, which has 2 very powerful active abilities. Sing, which is essentially a free bless that affects all allies within 6 meters, that also stacks with the bless spell itself. And Shriek, which is what we're more concerned with in this build, which causes all enemies within 6 meters to instead take an additional 1d4 thunder damage anytime they take damage from any source. There's no save for the aura or the damage, which means each magic missile that hits a target within the range of the aura will deal that extra damage. But wait, there's more! There are other items in the game that also add to the damage that magical missile can do, but it also adds damage to the Shriek's damage, such as the Callous Globe Ring from Act 2 and the Spellmight Gloves in Act 3. Some other items that can increase our damage include the Amulet of Elemental Torment found in Act 1, but it is a part of the random loot table that some of the vendors can have, such as Grat the Goblin Merchant outside of the Goblin Camp, or Brem from the Zentarum Outpost. And Rhapsody, a neat blade that can add up to 3 damage per missile, which you can acquire by killing a certain vampire lord in Act 3. As well as the staff Marco Heshkir, also in Act 3. The Evocations Wizard's level 10 feature can also apply extra damage equal to our intelligence modifier per missile. Similarly, the Draconic Sorcerer's associated elements damage can be increased too, as well as the Storm Sorcerer, which gets extra damage from thunder and lightning sources, such as the Lightning Charge items in Act 1. So as for which class to build this on, after much testing it seems the Evocation Wizard wins out, but the Draconic and Storm Sorcerers aren't far behind, so pick whatever you like in that regards. What really matters is the items. Oh, and just to make sure you have your associated spellcasting stat as high as possible. For feats, the Dwal Wielder feat is really the only one we need here, as it will let us increase our damage by dual wielding 2 special items, such as staves or like one of the other weapons mentioned earlier. Otherwise, you would just want to increase your ASIs, or your ability stat increases, to whatever your spellcasting stat is. So let's go over some of the items to look out for in the early game in Act 1. As mentioned before, Phalar Aluve is an incredible weapon. You don't need to rush it, but it is also fairly easy to acquire. For the path of least resistance, head to the Goblin Camp, where Priestess Gut will have a private session with you. Solve the puzzle down below. Wait for the Minotaur to perish at the door. Knock out the gem so you can leave safely. And spill some of your own blood, and voila, you have the weapon. This weapon is really good, and you don't need to have it on your wizard. I like to put it on one of my frontline characters who may not necessarily need a really good weapon to do damage. The Amulet of Elemental Torment is a bit trickier to find, since it is an item that is a part of a shared loot pool that can randomly appear through a few of the merchant's stocks. And their stock will change when a player levels up, or if you take a long rest. This particular item is pretty sweet, but requires a little bit of setup. You just have to be standing in a damaging surface, such as fire, electrified, allegedly frozen, but I haven't been able to test that part myself. Personally, in my testing, I've only used fire, and fire works just fine. I did notice that acid will apply, but acid doesn't do damage initially. At least the surface doesn't. The lightning charge items are also pretty good for early game casters, more so for the blue and bronze dragon sorcerers or storm sorcerers as well, although the spell sparkler is a great staff to have early to add a little bit extra lightning damage here and there when you get lightning charges. And the Sparks Wall set is also pretty solid in the Underdark as well. In Act 2, there isn't too many items that we need to look out for, other than the Callous Glow Ring, which can be found near a certain necromancer. This item will add 2 radiant damage anytime you deal damage to an enemy that's illuminated, which you can also help manipulate by casting the light cantrip on yourself, or an item near them. This damage will also be stacked with the Phalar Aluve's damage, so keep that in mind. And in Act 3, there are plenty of items to look out for, which I could spend a long time going over each and every individual item. But I'll just go over the most important one, the Spellmight Gloves, which adds an additional 1d8 damage to each missile that's shot out. Essentially, these gloves work like the great weapon fighting and the sharpshooter feats, as it will give us a -5 hit for that extra bonus damage. But magic missile always hits. So I suspect that this will be patched eventually, because it does state that you need to have an attack roll to be able to get that bonus, and magic missile doesn't do that. And the same thing goes with Phalar Aluve. I believe that'll be patched too, since there's a lot of interactions with that damaging source, but we'll see if that happens. But until then, enjoy obliterating your opponents in only a handful of turns. If you enjoyed this guide, please like, comment, and subscribe for more. Let me know if you like this style of guide, or perhaps you'd like to see more of my class build guides, in which case, let me know what kind of class you'd like to see a build for. But fear not, I will be posting my Ultimate Hero build, which is a Paladin Bard build combo with a few extra things in it. And I'll also be continuing my Necronomicon this week as well. Either way, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Farewell for now.